Hello YouTube people, I just wanted to talk to you for a little while about my thoughts on the Back to the Mac event that happened last Wednesday. Well, a couple of days ago now. I've had a little while to digest it, and what I'm going to say, I need to caution with really the thought that I really like Apple. I don't think that anybody who has used an Apple Mac would ever really willingly want to go back to Windows. I mean, it's just a million miles away from Windows. And I suppose what I'm going to say is really that Snow Leopard and the iLife apps really are so good, I think, that I just think that it's going to be very, very difficult for Apple to top them. And so I'm a bit disappointed really that they're not really appearing to be trying to top them. That's I suppose in a nutshell. It seems to me that their latest escapades seem to have more to do with money making than actually providing a better macOS experience. Okay, so first of all, they talked about iLife and iLife 11. Well, yeah, when I get round to it, I probably will upgrade my iLife, but I don't really see at the moment a great need to. Photoshop, I think I would rather save up and get the extra and pay the extra for Aperture 3. In terms of what it actually does in terms of editing photographs, it may well you may well be able to, with the new iPhoto 11, be able to send emails all from the same place, but iPhoto can send emails from already. Yeah, it might not be quite as slick, and it might not be able to do that sort of fantastic postcard view, but I mean, how many people are going to be able to read those emails in the format that they're sent in anyway? I never use all that fancy stationery, just because whenever I send it to someone, they've usually got some crapos Outlook Express or something like that, whatever they use for email these days, and they can't see it anyway. So there just seems very little point in doing anything other than typing in the basic email font and putting in any attachments that you want to put in anyway. So I see that as being slightly redundant. I would see something like Aperture as having the the ability to actually work with photos, and at the moment I'm using Element 6 for my photography things, and I find it's all a bit cumbersome. It doesn't work as well with iPhoto as it should do. For instance, I can't find a way to get to be able to click on a picture in iPhoto, or a batch of pictures really in iPhoto, and get them all to open up at once in Elements. That seems, for editing, I think that seems to be sort of quite difficult really. So I mean, I'm pinning my hopes on Aperture really, as I've said about 5 times already. Sorry for ranting. iMovie, I would never have had the confidence to make a movie and do anything on YouTube if it were not for iMovie 06, which was the iMovie HD version, which I found lovely to work with. I missed iMovie 08 because, as I say, I bought my Mac a tiny bit at the wrong time and didn't get the 08 iLife application, and so I bought the 09 stuff a bit later on. So I missed on the disappointment that people shared with iMovie 08. It seemed to have lost a lot of functions, which seem to be coming back with version 09. But yeah, I mean, I like iMovie 09. I think the trailers function, yeah, while it may look fantastic and people might sort of gape at it for 30 seconds, it's all a bit gimmicky. And I can't see that people are going to use that for real world things. It wouldn't be a thing that I would, want to gloat about. Maybe the audio things, but then again, who wants to sound like Darth Vader or a pig for more than 2 minutes? It's just it just seems to be just too gimmicky and a half. It's a shame that they didn't announce anything about iWeb, because once again, Windows users, you just do not appreciate how easy it is to get content on the web. I work in a primary school, and I find we've got a school website and everything, and it is so darn complicated, and even the attempts to make it easier are still too complicated. What you want to be able to do is get your content, drag it onto a web page and upload it. That's all you need. That's all you should ever have to do. And certainly as far as children and encouraging them to get web literate, you don't want them to have to sort of drown themselves in either HTML or WYSIWYGs or anything like that are just too darn complicated. So, Apple, you've got a brilliant thing in iWeb. Push it and update the damn thing, for God's sake. Right. 10.7, Lion. I'm grateful, I think, for the gestures. I think those would be very good. I like using the Magic Mouse. Here it is. Great. Except when the batteries run out when you're trying to use disk utility, which they did last night. But yes, I'm grateful for that, and I think that the new interface, the the iPad style and iPhone style launcher will be fantastic. I'm not so keen on advocating full screen view as a reason to upgrade an operating system. I think that's a bit shit, really. Sorry, Apple. And I still stand by my earlier video about trying to get some of the back to the basics things really right. They're not entirely losing their thread with the auto save function. I think that will be very good. Really, you see, nobody should ever have to worry about caches and saving things and all the innards of an operating system, and Apple have recognised that fact all along. It comes in things like the Safari browser, which is dead simple, as opposed to Internet Explorer, which has a list of options longer than my arm. I think the autosave function will be very welcome. I'm not quite sure how it will work, but yes, I do. What I think is a bit crap, really, is the Mac App Store. That is not an operating system, that's a website, and that is really my main gripe with Apple, really, is that the last few things that they've done have all been about how they can possibly make money. The people that have jailbroken the iPhone, for example, particularly the iPhone 3G, which I have here, for example, they have noticed that you can actually do multitasking and get background pictures on an iPhone 3G. It might be a bit slower than an iPhone 4, but you can do it. So, for example, all of the functions that iOS 4 has put into the iPhone 3G have been tended to be the ones that are going to make them money. Things like iBooks, the iBooks app, things like well, I can't really think about them for now, but look at iTunes. Okay, take away the CD function, or the burn to CD function, make that less obvious, because they used to have an icon for it right on the screen. They've taken that away because, funnily enough, they're going to want you to go to the iTunes store to get all your music. They don't want you to put it in from a CD. They don't want you to copy CDs, because that means that there's another universe out there somewhere that isn't Apple. Ping, it's just about making money. And and the App Mac Store is going to be exactly the same way. The Mac App Store, whatever it's going to be called, it's exactly the same way. It's saying, don't even buy your Apple applications from third-party stores. Get them all from this App Store, which is Apple, and and trying to convince us that it's this great new thing. Well, in fact, it isn't. And that is really my big gripe with Apple. There's nothing revolutionary in amongst anything at all that they announced software-wise at that Back to the Mac event. and it was all about how to focus people on getting everything from Apple, and that's why I think for me it sucked a little bit, and really I'll be proved wrong. I'll get the stuff in the end. You know, I'm sure that I'll upgrade my operating system, but yeah. I'm a little bit concerned as well about what kind of specs it's going to need from a computer. I mean, my 2 GB RAM is already really quite slow on this iMac, and I need to upgrade that. But you know, I think that it's probably going to be one of these things that's going to run brilliantly on 8 GB and barely alive on 4 GB, and certainly, you know, 2 GB I think is going to be too low, which means that again we're all going to have to upgrade. You know, well, there you go, Apple. It's raking in a few $100 billion for you to put into your next presentation, but you know, leaves me feeling a bit cold. Anyway, see you later. Bye.